everyone. Welcome to this webinar about the Amsterdam Primary School Lottery. There are still some people coming in, and for now I want to say welcome to Johanna and Suzanne and Robin and Peter, and a couple of more of you have registered, so I will record this webinar and then I will send it to everyone who has registered. So if you cannot attend it tonight, then I will see you later. So before I'll tell you about the lottery, I will explain a little bit about New to NL. So my name is Annebet van Mameren, and about 11 years ago I started New to NL. I advise international families about schools in the Netherlands. So that can be international school or Dutch school. And I write about the education system in the Netherlands and all the school options that you have. I also work for some corporate clients, so like Netflix is one of my clients, and Santa Fe relocations, and I help them with everything to make sure that the children of the employees have a school that they like, that they are happy with. I also record videos, so also check out my YouTube video. And I am Dutch, maybe you could already hear that. My husband is American, and we have 2 children who go to Dutch school. And today I will explain you about the lottery system in Amsterdam. One of the questions that some of you asked was, does this also apply to other areas in the Netherlands? The answer is no. The situation in Amsterdam is very specific, and even my Dutch friends in other cities, they look at me like they've seen a ghost when I try and explain the lottery system. So it's really specifically for Amsterdam. And this is only for primary school. So the website that you will really need to check out a lot in the coming months is the Schoolreizer Amsterdam website. Here you'll find a lot of information, but most of it is in Dutch. So in this webinar, I'll explain in English what you have to do. So they used to have a partly translated website in English, but now it's mostly Dutch. I've kept the old icons in English so that you understand what the steps are, but when you look at the site, it will all be in Dutch. They do have a FAQ section in English. So at the bottom of this slide, you can see what the website address is for the FAQs. And how it works in Dutch is first you have step 1, obviously, and then you have to fill out your address and also your the date of birth of your child. Below that you will see which schools you have priority. Well, there's a couple of things that you need to know. So the Dutch word for primary school is basisschool. So that is a word that you will see a lot in this period. And then you have priority for the 8 schools that are closest to your home address. It's not all 8 schools. There are also some schools that have different priority rules. I'll explain about them later. But if you look at the list that comes up after you have written down your address, you will see the 8 schools that are called voorrangschool in Dutch. And voorrang means priority. So these schools take part in the central lottery, and that is what we will talk about for the biggest part of this presentation. Here, apart from the name and the picture of the school, you will also see what the distance is from your home to this school. So they are sorted by distance. And then also what type of school it is. So is it a religious school? Do they follow educational philosophy? Do they have a special focus? So some schools, they have art and culture profile, or they focus more on science and technology. Then they will summarize that here on the first page. A few things that you need to know beforehand is most schools in the Netherlands, when they say they are religious, they're often not religious anymore. But this varies per school. But especially in Amsterdam, the religious schools were established a long time ago when religion was much more important than it is now. And they often don't pray, they don't go to church, they maybe read from a Bible every now and then. Maybe they celebrate Christmas in church, but that's about it. So before you dismiss a religious school, just ask them how religious they are and if that would work for your family. You don't need to be religious if you want to enroll your child at a religious school. However, they are expected to take part in all religious activities because you signed up for the school. And then it's also good to know that all schools follow the same, what we call core objectives, so the basic standards. And they all take the same type of test at the end of Group 8, which is the transition test. This is not an exam that you can pass or fail. That's also important to realize that. But a lot of schools follow a certain philosophy like Montessori or Waldorf or Dalton, and they have a lot of freedom to fill in the details themselves. So the basics are the same, but the way they teach is different. And when you click on the name of the school, then you will find more information about that. When you click on kaart, so map in English, then you will find the map of the schools that are closest to your house. And you have to look for the small V. It's not very visible, but they are the priority schools. And the schools that don't have the V, they have different priority rules, and they are the eenpitter schools. We'll talk about them later. And when you click on the name of the school, then you will find some more information. So first, a picture and a profile of the school and what type of school it is. And then they will also say inspectieoordeel. And this is the judgment of the inspection officers. I checked the website today, and all the time it says geen eindoordeel, which means there's no judgment. I think they're working on the side because they used to have like a traffic light system. So green, everything is okay. Orange, there are some issues. And red, there are some serious issues and they could get a fine. And if it's really bad, they risk to be closed. So this is very important. There's no ranking of the schools in the Netherlands, but the inspection judgment plays an important role. You can also go to the website of the inspection. So that is this link, the toezichtresultaat, difficult word in Dutch. And there you will find this traffic light system I was talking about. And when it just says 4-jaarlijks onderzoek bestuur, that means that every 4 years the inspection checks the schools or sometimes the school boards, and then they take a sample of the member schools. And then they really investigate everything. So they have a very long checklist. They look at things like the teacher turnover, the end results, the maintenance of the building, hygiene, if they have heard anything from other people complaining about the school, and a lot of more things. And in the end, they will come up with a final judgment. So when it's green, it's all good. And luckily, most schools are green in Amsterdam. When it says something different than 4-jaarlijks onderzoek, then it means that there's probably something going on, and then you really have to understand more thoroughly what is going on and if they have improved since, and if there's any risks if you would send your child there. So keep that in mind. 4-jaarlijks means 4 years. So every 4 years they go to the schools, but because of Corona, they have some delay. So some schools they visited much longer ago. But this also means that there were no signs that something bad was going on. So it can also be a good sign that they didn't visit for a while. On the same page, you will also find the preschools that this particular school is connected with. And so in this case, there's 2 preschools. Sometimes there's only 1. You have to realize that in most situations, the preschools don't give priority for the primary schools. So they are connected, they work together, but only if a child has a VW indication from the consultatiebureau, so the GGD, then they have priority for the connected primary school. So in other situations, you have to take part in a lottery, and then maybe you will end up at this school that is connected to the preschool, but maybe not. It does have some benefits to send your child to the connected primary school, because maybe they already know some of the teachers, they know the building, and hopefully there will be some preschool friends who go to the same primary school, and then they're not completely new anymore. But again, this really depends on your luck in the lottery. Where it says gemiddelde woonafstand, that means the average distance from the pupils from their home to the school. So in this case, it is 1 kilometer. That's a pretty short distance. So it means that it's a real neighborhood school. If the distance is longer, then it could mean that parents are prepared to commute further away to school. So probably they have something special. So maybe specific philosophy, or maybe bilingual or art profile school. And then parents could decide to cycle further to school. Most children go to school on foot or by bike, and it has a lot of advantages to live close to the school, also for play dates and just your family logistics. So I would definitely look into the schools that are close to your home. But it could be that you cannot find any that you like, or you want to fill up with other schools that are further away. And this is allowed as well. Then it will also show on this website how many students they have over the past years. It is very common, especially in Amsterdam South and the city center, that families are moving out because of the housing prices that are unfortunately very high. And nowadays, probably you know everything about that. So a lot of families decide to leave the city, and they move to a smaller town outside of the city where they have more space and a bigger house. And that's one of the reasons that you see a decline in the number of students in the schools in those areas. Or maybe there's another reason. So if you see a sharp decline, then it's good to understand what's going on and if something happened maybe. On the next slide, you will see when your deadline takes place. So there's 3 lotteries per year, and you can only take part once, and that depends on the date of birth of your child. So when a child is born between the 1st of January and the 30th of April 2021, then the lottery deadline is the 6th of June, so next week already. If your child was born later, then the lottery deadline will be November or March, so depending on when they were born. If your child was born earlier than the 1st of January 2021, then you have missed the lottery. In this case, you have to call all the schools one by one and ask if they still have availability. There's no lottery for you anymore in this situation. And some schools will be full. So you have no guaranteed spot at a school close by your home. If they're full, and then you have to try with another school. So those things are very important to realize. And then the lottery you should see as a random computer program, and they just select the applications. It's completely random. There's a notary involved who checks everything. And some children have priority. So first they will give a guaranteed spot to siblings. So when you have an older child who already goes to the same school, then the younger siblings, they will get a guaranteed place. And some lottery rounds, they have a lot of siblings and not many places for other children. And other lottery rounds, there's many more places available. So this varies per round. And then the children who have a VVE indication, they also get priority. A VVE indication is for preschool, and this is allocated by the consultatiebureau, the GGG I was talking about earlier. And in Amsterdam, they only give a VVE indication to children who have a language delay in their home language, or when the parents are lower educated and they cannot really help their children with the language developments. So to prevent that these children are already behind before they have even started school, they get this preschool indication. And then they get more hours of preschool. They get priority for preschool on the waiting list, and a little bit cheaper than the regular fees as well. And priority for the primary school that's connected to this preschool. So that comes in handy in this situation. In some cities, children who don't speak Dutch at home get also a VV indication. In Amsterdam, this is not the case because there are so many children who don't speak Dutch at home. And yeah, you cannot give the priority to all of those children. So they have made a strict selection when they risk to be behind because the parents cannot help them. And then the children of the staff working at that school, they get priority. And then they look at the priority schools and then at the other schools. So you can list other schools where you don't have priority on your form, but your chances will be lower compared to a child who lives close by and for whom this is a priority school. So you can take the risk, but you have to be aware that your chances are lower then. You should have received a form from the municipality, and they usually send it around age 3. It could be that you have never received this form or that you've lost it, and then you can download the blank form. The blank form you can find through this link that I copied below. If you use the blank form, then you also have to add a copy of your child's passport to prove their date of birth, and you have to prove your address. So that can be a rental purchase contract or maybe a bank slip that shows your address or the water bill, but something has to prove your address, something formal. Otherwise, you don't get priority for the schools closest to your house. So that is very important. And on this form, you add the details about your child. So I'll just take my glasses so I can see better. So the first box asks about your child's gender, so boy, girl, other, or no answer. Then the first name of your child, the last name, the address, so the street and house number. Then the next line, the postcode, city, and date of birth. And then it's the details about the first parent. So the initials, and initials is the first letter of the parent's first name and their middle name, not the last name. So that is something you will see on many different forms in Dutch. 4 letters does not ask about your last name, only about your first names. And then achternaam is last name, then phone number 1 and phone number 2. So you could put here phone number 1 of the first parent and then a spare phone number of the second parent, and the same with email 1 and 2. Then they ask again for address. You only need to fill out this address if the child lives at a different address compared to parent number 1. So for parents who are divorced, you might use this address, and otherwise you leave it empty, and then they understand parent and child are living at the same address. And then the next section is only if applicable. So if you have an older child who already goes to the school of your preference, then you put here the name of the older brother or sister and a date of birth. So this only applies for children who go to the school that you prefer for your younger child as well. Then the second box is if your child has a VV indication. And if this is the case, then you have to add a proof of this VV indication, so a copy of the form. Then the third box is if your child attends the IKC, and IKC is a child center, and that means when the preschool, after school care, primary school are all connected in the same building, and the school name will include IKC as well. And you also have to add a proof of this, and it's very important that your child has attended 8 months for at least twice per week prior to start of school. So from age 3 years and 4 months or earlier that they started at this IKC, sorry. And make sure to prove that, otherwise they this priority does not apply. And the fourth box is when one of the parents is employed at this school for indefinite time. So those are the priority rules. If you don't tick any of those boxes, then you don't have priority. Then in the next section, you have to list your priority or your schools of preference. The most preferred school you put at number 1, and then the second preferred school at number 2, and so on. If an older sibling already attends the same school, you only need to list one school. So then you don't need to list all the other schools. But if this is your first child, or if older children attend different schools, then you have to list at least 5 schools. This is very important because if they don't have a place at the schools of your preference and you only listed less than 5 schools, then they can say, yeah, we're not really going to help you because we asked for 5 schools and you did not do this. And yeah, then it's your problem. So at least 5 schools. You can add more, but that's not really needed. And remember, you have more chance at the priority schools, but you can also list other schools where you don't have priority, but you will have a lower chance then. You can write something in aanvullende opmerkingen. This is additional comments. Maybe you could say, we have included a purchase contract with a date in the future. We're not living there yet, but at the time that our child will start school, so at their 4th birthday, then we will live on this address. So we wish to take part in a lottery based on our new address. You can also leave it blank if you have nothing special to add here. And then the last section is about your signature. So first the date, then the name of the parent or guardian, and then the signature. And within 1 week after you have submitted the form, they will send you a confirmation. Usually they send it by email and it will be on the same day. If you don't get this confirmation, make sure to contact the school before your lottery deadline because something went wrong. And make sure to fill out the form completely, otherwise it will not be valid. And that's not what you want, of course. So then you have to hand in the form in person, and you go to the first school of your preference, and they will put all the details in the system, so also the other schools. And in the end, you will get an email or sometimes a post, a letter sent by post from the school where your child has been accepted. So hopefully it's the same school where you handed in the form, but it could be that it is a different school, and that means that there was no place at the first school of your preference. And don't forget to confirm your spot. So in this letter or email, they will state by when you have to reply. Usually it's 2 weeks. If you don't reply in time, they might give the place to another child, and then you have no school. So even if it's not the first school on your list, make sure to accept the spot. And maybe things will change still. So it can be that some families move or some parents take they also take part in the Eenpitter lottery, and then they choose for another school, or maybe they change their mind. So some changes will still happen. You will stay on the waiting list of the school that you put at number 1. So if something changes at that school, they will contact the first child on the waiting list and offer the place then. So in any case, accept the school that has been offered to you, otherwise you have no spot. Step 5 is that your child can start school. Most children start the day after their 4th birthday, so they start throughout the year. If your child's birthday is in November, they start in November. If they start in February, the birthday is in February, they start in February, and so on. From age 5, they're obliged to go to school. So there's some flexibility in the first year, especially for children who were born before the Christmas vacation or before the summer break. It might be a more relaxed start if they wait until the vacation is over and then start slowly after that. But it really depends on your situation. So usually you will be contacted about 1 month before your child's 4th birthday by the teacher of the new school, and then you will discuss start date and any other practicalities. I have made a separate webinar about practicalities of primary school, so if you want to know how that all works, then I definitely recommend to watch that webinar. And just go to YouTube and you will find all my videos and webinar recordings there. I've also made another video about when does my child start school and how that works, so you will get a lot of information there as well. Of course, you would like to know your chances of getting a place. This changes every lottery round, so maybe they have a lot of children who went to the preschool with a VV indication, maybe a lot of siblings already got a place. So yeah, it's very unpredictable, but if you go to the BBO website, you will find some statistics of the previous lotteries. The BBO is a sort of umbrella organization that collects all the statistics for all the lotteries and on behalf of all the school boards. So there's many different school boards in Amsterdam. Some school boards have only 1 or 2 member schools, and others they have maybe 20 or 30 member schools. And the BBO is the umbrella organization of all of them combined. So if you look at the name of the schools, in this case Theo Thijssen in the city center, they have 3 lottery rounds per year. And in the next line they say how many places they had available in the past periods. So in this case 20, 37 and 20 places. Usually they divide the equal number of places per period, so I'm a bit surprised, to be honest, why this is almost twice as many places in this period 3 compared to period 1 and 2. There's probably a reason, or maybe they opened a new class and then they had more availability. So this can change every lottery round. Here you can see how many of the application of children who applied they could actually place at the school. And so in period 2 and 1 it was only 88%, and when they had more places available they could place all the children, so that was good. And then they talk about a percentage of buurtkinderen, and buurtkinderen means children who have neighborhood priority, so one of those 8 schools. And here you can see that in the second period they could place all the children who, so also the neighborhood children, but then in the first period they couldn't even place all the children with neighborhood priority. So they had, it was more difficult in this lottery round to get a place, even if it's a priority school for you. And this shows that you really have to put other schools on your list as well. Otherwise, you have no school. Now, if you look at, it's still the BBO website, but then another page, they have the statistics of the previous lottery round. And what this says here is that in this lottery round, 93% of the children got placed at their first school of preference, 4% at the second choice, and then 1% at a third choice. So combined, this is 97% who got in the top 3. There were, in this case, 29 children who did not get a place, which was 1% of the total of 1,988 children. So this is one lottery round. So almost 2,000 children took part. There are in total 210 schools, and all those schools combined have almost 3,500 places available. So there are enough places for everyone, but some schools are more popular than others, and some other schools, they always have availability. Maybe because they're not popular, maybe because they're a bigger school and they can place everyone. So these are the numbers that you have to look into and see for the school of your interest what your chances will be there. It's no guarantee for the next lottery round, it just gives you some indication. And they provide some more information. So I thought 29 children who did not get a place, that's actually a lot. But they specify that among those 29, there were a lot of children whose parents only wanted an Islamic school, and they only put 1 or 2 Islamic schools on the list, and they didn't have enough places at the Islamic schools. So there's a couple of Islamic schools spread out over the city, but apparently it's not enough for the parents who want to send their children there. And these parents didn't put any non-Islamic schools on the list. So then they couldn't be placed anywhere. Eventually, at age 5, they have to go to school, so there has to be a solution. So either one of those Islamic schools can place them after all, or maybe one of the other schools could accept the children in the end. And then some of those 29 children lived in Weesp, and in Weesp they do have enough capacity, but not at all the schools. And so there's one school, Wisperweide, that usually does have availability, but the children who did not get a place in Weesp, they didn't put the Wisperweide on their list. So then they could not be placed either. So for most children in Amsterdam who put a non-Islamic school on the list, they do get placed at one of the 5 schools that they listed. But of course, you hope to enter the top 3. Then you can also see which schools still had availability after the lottery. This is not a guarantee that those schools still have a place, but it does give an indication. And the M you see here in front of the name of the school. So for example, in the city center, there's the 14th Montessori school. The M stands for Montessori. OG stands for ontwikkelingsgericht, which is sort of development oriented, which is, you could see that as a combination of Montessori and Dalton, so child-led approach. And the D is for Dalton, and the V is for Vrije School, which is the Waldorf school. And there's also some Jenaplan schools, so they are indicated with a J. And NL is natural learning, but there's not many schools in Amsterdam that follow that still, I believe. But so then you know what type of school still has availability. So if your child did not get into one of your preferred schools, you could try and contact the schools that are mentioned here, and hopefully they still have a place. It could be that they were already contacted by other parents and they are full by now. So this is no guarantee there will still be a place, but it gives you some indication. And then we'll talk about the Eenpitter schools that I already mentioned before. The Eenpitter schools are schools that have their own school board, so usually one or two schools that belong to this school board. The Eenpitter schools, they can make their own rules up to a certain extent because they still have to adhere to the government guidelines and basic standards. So they're not private schools. Usually the Eenpitter schools ask for a bit higher parental contribution than the central schools do. So for most schools in Amsterdam, you pay less than 100 euros per year for the parental contribution, and the Eenpitter schools, they used to ask about 600 euros or more. However, the elder woman for education in Amsterdam decided that if these schools still want to receive the subsidies from the municipality, they cannot ask more than 235 euros per year for parental contribution. And it's also good to realize that the parental contribution is voluntarily. The schools really want to receive this money from you because they use it to pay for extras like school trips and decorations for Christmas, for example, and some other excursions and extra materials. But for parents who really cannot afford that, they don't have to pay. They can also get a subsidy from the municipality to pay for the parental contribution. Schools are not allowed to refuse children if they cannot pay for the parental contribution, so they can still take part in all the activities. But if a lot of parents don't pay, then they have to skip a few activities or reduce the materials that they're using. So that would be a shame. And schools also ask extra money for lunch supervision. So that's also a bit strange thing for a lot of international parents. So the children have to bring lunch from home, but the teachers also have a lunch break. And then the school hires external lunch supervisors to stay with the children. And first they eat in a classroom and then they play outside. And the parents have to pay for a contribution for these lunch supervisors. It hugely varies per school. And it's common to ask between 150 and 300 euros per year per child, and this is not voluntarily. So if your child stays at school for lunch, you have to pay that. Some of the Eenpitter schools, when the money they could ask for parental contribution was reduced, they decided to hire the parental contribution or some other donation or some type of money that they ask extra from the parents. But this is also voluntarily. Another difference is that the Eenpitter schools have their own catchment area. So on the right, you can see the catchment area of the Peter School, which is one of the Eenpitter schools. And so you have to live within this square to get priority. Most of the Eenpitter schools are full for the lottery, so if you live outside, it's very hard to be placed, but you can still try, of course. There are 10 schools that have their own school board. Most of them are in Amsterdam South, and one in the center, which is ASFO. So check the website of the school specifically to understand what their catchment area is and what also the deadline is, because usually the deadline of the Eenpitter schools is about 3 weeks before the central lottery. So the Eenpitter lottery was last week on the 23rd for the children who were born between the 1st of January and the 30th of April 2021. And the next cohort will be somewhere mid-October for the Eenpitter schools, and then beginning of November for the central schools. And on the website of these schools, you can also find a separate Eenpitter lottery form. And you can take part in both lotteries. So first you can take part in the Eenpitter lottery, and after that in the central lottery. And then in most enjoyable situation, you will have one place at the Eenpitter school and one place at the central school. And then you can decide which school you like best. First, you have to confirm the Eenpitter school, then take part in the central lottery. If you prefer the central school better, then you have to tell the Eenpitter school that your child will not be coming after all, and then they can give that place to another child on the list, and then confirm your spot with the central school. It's a bit more administration, but yeah, that's the way it is set up. The municipality would really like the Eenpitter schools to join in the central lottery as well, but yeah, they want to keep the things in their control, mainly because in this way they can decide their own catchment area and they're not a priority school. So some schools have a very wide catchment area and others only one postcode area. So it really depends on the school which children they want to include or not. So that also depends on the school policy. And then for the Eenpitter schools, you have a separate form. You also bring that form to the first school of your preference. On the form, they will also ask you to list other schools. You could do that, but keep in mind that Eenpitter schools, they fill up quickly, especially if they have a lot of siblings who get priority. Most Eenpitter schools do give priority to children who attend their preschool, so without a VV indication. So if you're unlucky, there's a lot of siblings and preschoolers with priority, and then you have no chance at all when your child does not belong to one of those categories. So you can always try and list more schools, but it's not guaranteed that you will get a spot there. But at least you have the central lottery still coming up. So do take part in both lotteries in that case. On the Schoolwijzer website, you will see this yellow block that says this school does not take part in the central lottery procedure. And so that means they are an Eenpitter school and that they have their own policies. So you do not put the name of an Eenpitter school on the regular form, because that's two separate lotteries. They have nothing to do with each other. That's very important that you are clear about that. This was in short how the lottery works. There's a lot more to tell about that. I offer the all-inclusive package, and then I will also explain how the lottery works, but then more in detail. I will identify for you which schools in your area could work for you, so based on your wishes and needs and the distance from home and other requirements you might have. I will also write a report about the schools that are interesting for you, so maximum of 6 schools. And then I will also help you with the application form and how to fill that out and make sure that everything is correct and valid before you hand it in. And the normal price for this all-inclusive package is €550, 515. With this webinar, I offer 15% discount. So you can book through the families page on my website, so newturnell.com/families, and then you can book the call. You will get a form sent to you, or at least a link to this form. And if you write down in the comment section that you've watched this webinar and that you get 15% discount, then I will apply that on the invoice. I will send you the invoice after the call. And this offer is valid for 1 week after now, so the call does not need to take place within 1 week, but you have to make the booking within 1 week. So before next Wednesday, that is. And I also offer ad hoc calls or introduction calls or catchment areas. So it really depends on in which stage of your school search you find yourself. And so this webinar is specifically for Amsterdam, but if you live in another city, I can help you as well, of course. But then the policy is entirely different again. I'll answer some questions that I got beforehand and during this webinar as well. Yeah, so one is about the form that, so parent says that they didn't receive this form or they've lost it. That's not a problem. You don't need to call the municipality like you suggested. Just I'll go back to this form. So when you go to the email, to the web page that is listed below here on this page, so of the BBO website, then you will find this blank form and just print it out and fill it out and add your child's passport copy and proof of address, and then that's okay as well. So you don't need to have this other form anymore. One of another question, so if you want your child to start later than after their 4th birthday, if you can take part in a different lottery then, I get asked that question a lot. The answer is no, and that is very important. When your child was born within this time frame, then you have only one chance to take part in the lottery. So you do take part in the lottery if you're this age group, and then after you get accepted at this school, then you contact the school and you explain that maybe you will be traveling for a few months and you want your child to start after that. So they don't have to start after their 4th birthday, they can. They're obliged to start before their 5th birthday, so that is an important deadline. But it's up to you when you want your child to start. But there's no other chance to take part in a lottery if you've missed this one. So that is very important to realize that. It's also very common that the first year the children go to school and maybe only in the mornings, or they stay at home on Wednesdays when they're tired. So it is really flexible. Of course, you discuss with the teacher so they know when your child will be there or not. From age 5, the school attendance law is very strict, so then all the flexibility disappears. So yeah, make sure you apply in time according to the deadline of your child's date of birth. Yeah, in the Amsterdam schools, so some of you ask why they are separate. Yeah, that's historically before this whole system, the lottery system was initiated. All schools had their own policies, and the Amsterdam schools, they just kept it like that. So they especially want to have control over the catchment areas, that they can decide themselves in this way. Sometimes these schools are more popular than the regular schools, but it doesn't really mean they are the better schools. It really depends on the population. So most of those schools are located in the more wealthy areas of Amsterdam South. And sometimes the population is more wealthy and more Dutch than some other schools. So you really have to ask if they have experience with children who don't speak Dutch at home, if that applies to your situation, and ask them if they could support your child if they have difficulty with the Dutch language. Your child does not have to speak Dutch yet if they want to start at group 1 or group 2 at a regular school. From age 6, they have to go to a newcomer class if they don't speak Dutch yet, but then you don't need to take part in this lottery anymore, so that's a different story. And But it really depends on the school, what their population is, what their policies are, and how they do things. So always ask a lot of questions. So when you take the all-inclusive package, then I will also send you a checklist with questions that you can ask during your school visits. If the lottery deadline is later than this June, then you still have time to visit schools, and I would definitely make use of that, because then you can compare, get a feel for them, and understand if that would work for your family or not. It's a very personal decision. Like I said, there's no ranking of schools, so you cannot say this is the better school, but you can say this school suits our family better than another school in our area, and that's completely fine, of course. I hope I've answered all your questions. If not, you are welcome to fill out the contact form on the New Tonel website, or send me an email, and here you will find all the details. And if you go to the FAQ section on my website, so the link you can see the bottom left here, then you will also find a lot of answers on the most frequently asked questions. I hope the whole lottery system is clear now. Thank you for watching, and good luck in the lottery. I will cross my fingers that your child will end up at the #1 school. And remember, there's no guarantee, but hopefully you're lucky. Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll be in touch. Okay, bye-bye.